Okay, guys, this is going to be a quick live. I'm going to go over some questions I received. I just received another one today, and I did say a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I would circle back around to the passport conversation when it came to birth certificates and social security numbers. So I'm going to keep the questions anonymous. This is not just a question from today, it's also questions I've received over time and try to answer them. So I will also attempt to link the two other videos I made on this topic in the description box in case you have other questions that I may have answered elsewhere, such as home buying, jobs, uh, bank accounts, things like that. So it says, I recently commented on your working without a birth certificate or social security number YouTube video. Sorry for the lengthy email. I'm having trouble with the letter of no record. I wanted to ask what I should say at the vital statistics office. I've called and they've been no help at all. The first lady answered and said, I have to order the birth certificate first, and then if they don't have it, I would get the letter of no record. And she sent me to a website. The second lady said, why would you not want a birth certificate? We don't do that here. You have to go to the state level. I really hate dealing with these people. I wish I didn't have to. I always get intimidated. Second, I don't even remember how I found out about all this stuff, but where would you recommend I learn about it? Somehow I ended up on these two websites and I wanted to know your thoughts on them. I know in the video you mentioned maritime law, which I'd never heard of, but I have heard of the straw man. This person says we gain control and ownership of the manufacturer's certificate of origin, straw man, by first activating, and then she goes into like this whole thing and these kind of loopy websites. So, first part of the question first. I don't advise getting into, hi, Shar. I don't advise getting into deep conversations with the people at Vital Statistics about what you're trying to do. You're not there to educate and advocate. Simply go and apply for a birth certificate. Okay. Go to the Vital Statistics office, put in the true and honest information about when your child was born, who your child's parents are, and let them go try to find the record. If there's no record, they will say, we don't have any record of that. And you can say, can you please give me a letter of no record? It's just that simple. There doesn't require extra conversation. Just just be normal. That's what I would say. Be normal, don't be weird. Just go apply for, and I'm not saying this person's weird. I'm just saying don't be off on some weird stuff. Just do like normal people do and go apply for the birth certificate. And try to get the letter of no record. As far as where I think you should learn about this stuff, I don't advise any places. There are a lot of Moors, there are a lot of freemen, there are a lot of people that believe in the straw man concept, and they put out a lot of loopy things, and I personally don't do that. So I would advise that you not look at either of those sites that you mentioned. And the things that I give you are the law, right? In my videos, we go to the government's websites and we do what the government says we are allowed to do. I'm not trying to do anything extra here. So that is what I would say. And I would advise that you avoid those things as well. A lot of those people end up in jail because even if they were right, and I'm certainly not saying that they are, it wouldn't really matter because the government is going to do what they want to do. All right. Next email. Hey, Yvette, caring husband and fitness business owner, interested in learning and growing in all things. I watched your video working without a social security number or a birth certificate, and then followed the comments to your no social security number needed answering your questions video. My wife and I had our first child, a lovely boy. It was perfect. It was a free birth at home, just the two of us. We currently have zero documentation. We are trying to make the best decisions for our son from prenatal nutrition to documentation. I had a few questions about choosing not to get our son a social security number or birth certificates. Number one, What are the benefits of not getting a social security number or birth certificate for your kids? They won't have to pay taxes, question mark. If your child starts a business, their business will pay via EIN and then they can pay themselves and they won't pay taxes. Would this be the correct route? You aren't planning to have a pediatrician for well baby visits at the moment, so we won't have those records. There's so much to unpack here. We are going to get a birth affidavit notarized tomorrow. We have the family Bible with names and birth dates in the back, and then we would go and try to retrieve our child's birth certificate. Then that's mm, and then I think I don't understand the sentence. Maybe show them the letter of no record. Is it too early at 20 days old to do all this, including get the passport? Thank you so much for your time and content. This is the only place I've been able to find this info, trying to weigh the pros and cons and make informed decision to give our son the best. If you have any other lists or resources, people are always asking me for resources, and I just don't have anybody I would recommend. Most of, like I said, people who talk about this topic are off into left field somewhere, and I don't get into left field. So first of all, your child needs a pediatrician. I do have a list of no vaccine friendly pediatricians, so actual medical doctors that are friendly to people who don't vaccinate, who are doctors that are comfortable with modified or no vaccinations. Um, but you will need early childhood records. Somebody, and I'll get to some of the other questions people have asked me, but you need early childhood records. Our system is set up so that people who are not American citizens are not able to get passports. So you need early childhood records. I'll talk a little bit about what I went through again with my daughter to have that public because I think the last video I made on that it's private for members in Patreon, but you need early childhood records, period. Even if the baby's 20 days old. Plus, you should just want to take your baby to a pediatrician. I'm not anti doctor, and we are not doctors, and it's good to take your baby to a pediatrician. So, it is not too early to get your baby a passport at 20 days old. You can totally do that. Um, but you're going to need more than the signed affidavits from you and your wife. First of all, something that I've learned, I mentioned this with my eldest daughter, is that the person applying for the passport cannot be the person that signs the birth affidavit. Like you could do it, but you're going to need other people to sign a birth affidavit too. It can't just be the person applying for the child. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you need early childhood records. It's not optional, it is required. Family Bibles are great as long as they're legitimate. If you just bring and it looks like you just scrawled some stuff in the Bible, they're just looking for legitimacy. So that's what I would say to all of that. As far as the benefits for not having a birth certificate and social security number, yes, without a social security number or a tax identification number, you do not pay personal income tax. You need to have a tax ID or a social security number to be beholden to income taxes. If you have a social security number or a tax ID, you must pay income taxes. So that's probably the biggest thing. I think for me, it's just majorly having the choice. The thing is, we don't have to have those documents. If everybody gets them, then it takes away our right to not have them. Most people don't even know how to operate in society without them because everybody does it. And you get hassled a lot when you try to get passports or jobs when you don't have these documents, even though our system is set up to not have them. So I just think if for no other reason, it's the principle of the thing, right? It's because you don't have to. And I'm just not for doing things I don't have to do. And I also think that it's a great way to lose rights when you don't use them. So you don't use your rights, you lose your rights. So that's what I would say. Hey, Cassandra. All right, going back to the questions. Let's see. So This person said, I have a few questions about the steps to take to get my newborn daughter a passport without a BC and SSN. I currently have a certificate of live birth. Please feel free to share any advice. Okay. So, if you have a certificate of live birth for your child that has their name on it, you have to submit it. You don't need a social security number to get a passport for your child, but you have to submit the certificate of live birth if you have it. That is whether it has your child's name in it or doesn't. And I know some people are like, why would I have a birth certificate that doesn't have my child's name on it? But I personally, for one of my children, have a birth certificate and it does not have my child's name on it because the hospital reported my child's birth, but because I didn't give them a name, there is a record. So if you have any record of your child's birth, you're going to have to turn that in. So that is the long and short answer of that. Let's go to the next question. All right. So this is from a person who doesn't have documentation. So he gives his name. I'm not going to give his name. He says, I'm 17 years old and I was born at home. I have no birth certificate or social security number. I watched your video on YouTube several times about working with no social security number and birth certificate. I am the only one in my family that does not have these. I want to get a job and travel, and I just need help getting my passport without the birth certificate and social security number. My mom has contacted Vital Records and gotten a letter of no record. We have a circumcision record, a page out of the Bible, and almost all my picture school identifications. That is great. I was wondering if you could help me finish this process. I have some more questions. I just need help, and we don't know anyone that has been through this. Please could, and then the person gives me their number, right? So this person is in a great situation. Actually, this is a really similar situation to the one that I had with my eldest daughter. So 16 years old, I would not advise waiting until this age, 16, 17 years old. The older a child gets, or the older a person gets, the harder it is because they're going to want so much more information. So it's best to do it when they're young and then just keep renewing their passport. But I recently got my 16-year-old a passport. She did not have a letter of no record, but you have some great things here. So you have everything they need. You're going to need several people from your family. So this is what I've learned throughout the years. You guys know I have a bunch of kids. You're going to need all the things you have, your letter of no record, circumcision records, family Bible, all of that stuff, all of your school records. They're going to want two things. They're going to want super early records. So records from like 0 to 5 years old, really early records. And then they're also going to want records that show that you have consistently been using your name from the time you were little until the time you were 17. So it could be a baptism record. It could be school transcripts. I homeschool, so that's like an extra layer that I had because I homeschool. The only school records I have are my own. You can also get affidavits from family members who knew you as a baby, family members who were present for your birth. You at 17 can apply. You can ask your mother and your father to sign the affidavits and all of those things. And with that said, you should be good to go. Also, something they asked us for, and I feel like the lady was making us jump through hoops, but like you can definitely do it, is pictures from when you were little until present day. They're really just looking to check off a few things: that you're American, you were born to an American, that people can validate that you used your name your whole life, so you're not trying to play a switch-aroo with like just changing your name, and you should be good. But it's not just those early records, it's the records later in life, and you're going to want more than one affidavit of somebody who was there for your birth or who can acknowledge, excuse me, you guys, my voice, or who can acknowledge that you were born in the United States. All right. This is somebody else. I just watched your live and wanted to reach out to you to get further information on how you went about getting your child a passport when your midwife filled through vital records of your child's birth. I'm due in February and I'm having a home birth. I would like to know step by step so I can be prepared on what to do after my child's arrival. Also, I stay in Fort Worth, Texas. If you have any recommendations on unvaccinated pediatricians, that would mean a lot as well. So, yes, I do have a list of pediatricians that deal with children who are not vaccinated. It's not a list that I created, it's a list that a doctor created, and I'm always happy to share that out. Number two, as far as a home birth, midwives, most midwives, and you guys know I used a midwife for several of my births, are required to report your child's birth. They're required to do it, and they're going to do it. So will hospitals, so will doctors. You can choose to not give out your child's name. Just say, I haven't picked a name yet, and stick by that until they do their report. The thing is that you will not get a letter of no record that way. There will be a record. The record just will not be valid, meaning that you won't be able to use it for anything because it doesn't have a name. It's going to say like baby boy or baby girl and then the mother's last name. As far as step by step, you're going to need a copy of the unofficial birth certificate that's going to say baby boy or girl with your last name. If you give your midwife the baby's name, I'm so sorry. I don't know why my voice is doing this. If you give your midwife your baby's name, she's going to include it on her paperwork, and the birth certificate will have your child's name on it, and it's going to be what it does. If there's anything, if it does, there's nothing you can do. However, you can still not have the Social Security number. They request if you want one, simply say you don't want one. All right. However, in this situation, since I don't know if this mother is going to end up with an unofficial birth certificate or an official birth certificate, I can't really say. You're also going to need the Social Security number requirement exemption document. Basically, all that is, you have to submit a statement that is signed and dated, and it has the phrase, I declare under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the United States of America, that the following is true and correct. I, or you put your child's name, have never been issued a Social Security number by the Social Security Administration. For those of you who are watching this live on the playback, just go to the government's website. They put the information there. This is not a secret, all right? So again, if you don't have a Social Security number, you have to have a signed affidavit that says that. Go ahead, have it notarized. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the following is true and correct. I, or your child's name, have never been issued a Social Security number by the Social Security Administration. That information is good enough. That is what they require. You're also going to have, same thing, early public or private documents, and you're going to want to have as many as possible. The public records need to have, and this is key when we're talking about records that prove who you are without a birth certificate. It must have your full name. It must have your date and place of birth. This is why doctor's records are so important, and baptismal records, or if you committed your child. For you non-religious people, it'll just be harder for you. So that's a baptism certificate, a hospital birth certificate, like the little crib sheet that has the baby's footprints, a census record, early school records, family Bible records, doctor's records, your postnatal records. So even include the mama's records, right? Like mothers, go get the record from being pregnant, right? From your midwife or your OBGYN. Include those records from your pregnancy with your child's early childhood and birth records. All of those things are perfect. And also, you want to have more than one. I learned this the hard way. You need to have more than one birth affidavit. So yes, mama, fill out the birth affidavit. But dad, you fill out the birth affidavit. Uncle so-and-so fills out the birth affidavit. If there are any, I have a big age gap in my children. So I had children that were older when some of their siblings were born, have them fill out a birth affidavit. Notarize those documents, send them all in. All right? Send them all in. All right, let's go to the next person's question. I'm trying not to forget anybody. Okay, let's see. Okay, this person says that they've emailed me before with some questions about getting a passport for their daughter. It took us a little bit to get it done, but we just received her passport today. Oh, this is not a question. Oh, maybe it is. Thank you for the help you gave us. I have another question now. I just rewatched all 3 videos and didn't find the answer. I'm hoping you'll be able to help me. My daughter just recently had a book published, and the publishing company is asking her to fill out a W-9 form. First of all, shout out to your baby girl for getting a book published. They want a W-9 form. I'm starting to think that we will need to get her an EIN or TIN number because I'm not seeing a way around this. Am I understanding that correctly? Would that be the best way to go about this? If we get her an EIN or a TIN, does that mean she'll have to pay taxes then? Thank you for any advice or help you can provide. So first of all, it would not be a TIN, it would be an EIN. And it's pretty standard practice for places to want a W-9. That's just something that they are required to do. So, you might as well go ahead and do that for her. And yes, if you have a tax ID, you will pay taxes. She will not pay personal income taxes, right? But she will pay corporate taxes. So there are some situations, where businesses, they pay taxes. There's no way around that. There's no way, first of all, well, I don't believe in paying personal income tax, although if you have a social security number, you don't have a choice. But for those people without social security numbers, they don't have to pay personal income tax because having a social security number is a requirement to pay taxes. So without one, you don't pay taxes. However, well, personal income taxes, I should say. However, if you want to zhuzh around in some areas, you might have to have a business, and your business should and will have to pay taxes. But your business can pay you, and you don't have to pay taxes, right? So, and when I say you don't have to pay taxes, I want to specify personal income tax. Okay, that's not every other type of tax, just personal income tax. So that is pretty much the answer to that question. And congrats again on your daughter who wrote a book. All right, let's see. Next time. Hi, Yvette. I found your video on YouTube. Thank you so much, as it is difficult to navigate this topic. I had my 6th baby. Shout out to the mamas with half a dozen babies. That's beautiful. in June, and I just could not get a birth certificate in good faith, so I didn't. I want to get her a passport. What could happen if I tried to get her a passport now at 2.5 months versus around 1 year? What would you suggest and why? Thank you again and many blessings to you. Um, so you can get your child a passport at any age as long as you have the documentation they need. I say the earlier, the better, right? Like I said, with one of my daughters, I waited until she was 16. Does she have her passport? Yes. I told this story on a video that is now just for my Patreon and YouTube membership page. But I recently just got, for my eldest daughter, her passport. She didn't get it till she was 16. We had a trip planned to go to Europe. I did all the things I told you guys to do. And although she ended up with her passport, she didn't end up with it in time for us to take her birthday trip to Europe. And I was given a lot more hassle. I told the story about this, so I won't go back into it here. I was given hassle by a naturalized citizen who was just very upset, basically because I was doing it differently. But different doesn't mean illegal, and I did it legally, and she did get her passport. So I would say, don't do what I did and wait till your child is a teenager. The younger your child is, the better. And it's much easier to keep renewing a child passport than it is to get a teenager or an adult who doesn't have a birth certificate and social security number, a passport. So I would say get it early. 1 year old is still early. You don't have to do it at 2.5 months. But make sure that you do it earlier rather than later. Okay, next question. Okay. Hello. Thank you for your videos. I have 4 kids and none of them have a birth certificate or social security number. My oldest is 15 and we are now looking into how she can work without these things. I realize we should have done this long ago. I'm glad I found your videos because they actually give real information. Thank you. I try to give legal, real, not bizarro world information. I'm Thank you so much for sharing this information. My question is, I had all hospital births, and I know the births were recorded by the hospital, but we never signed anything because we knew not to do that. So how do I go about getting a passport when there is a record at the Vital Statistics office, but not a valid birth certificate? Thank you. Thanks again for your help. So yeah, like I said, I have children that are in this situation. You do have to take the birth record. So even though the birth certificate doesn't have your child's name on it, because the record exists, they will not give you a letter of no record. So you're going to have to take the birth certificate that's no good to you. You can't use it for anything, but you're going to have to take it with you. Now, you'll probably get some questions like, how come you just don't change the name and blah, blah, blah. People ask out of curiosity, not because there's some legality tied to it. And in my case, I actually already had tickets purchased to leave the country. So I just was like, it takes a year to change it at this point, and we already have tickets, People are normally, when they question you, they're doing it because you're doing something different. Like I said, not because there's any legality against you choosing to not amend the birth certificate. It's just anytime you do anything different, and this is why I said it's really important that some of us live life by the multitude of ways that are legal for us to live life. Because if more people didn't have birth certificates and social security numbers, it wouldn't be as big of a deal when one of us shows up to do something. But because everybody kind of is offered this when their child is born, and everybody just says, yeah, 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 it becomes difficult. So what I would say is that question is going to come up. How come you just don't amend the birth certificate? How come you just don't get a passport once you amend the birth certificate? Because the assumption is that you want to amend this non-valid birth certificate. Don't get into deep philosophical discussions with people. People are really just asking it like as an automatic tick. Do you know what I mean? It's like, something, it's like they're faced with something. These people normally do their jobs with automaticity, right? Then they're suddenly faced with something they've not probably been faced with before. So the first thing they want to do is understand why you're being nonconformist or to try to get you to conform. Do not get into deep discussions. Nobody cares nor needs to know about your personal philosophical reasons for not doing birth certificate and social security numbers. I kept it really simple. I was just like, we're leaving the country. She doesn't need it, and I need a passport for my child. That's the end of the discussion. Now, I got a lot more prying and the lady was annoyed, but that's not really my problem. People's annoyance or lack of understanding is not my problem. Just be super polite, keep your questions brief, don't explain anything. You're not required to explain yourself. You're only required to provide them with the documentation that they need. So that is what I will say. You're going to have to take that birth record and all the other documents that are required, the notarized birth affidavits. Like I said, go overkill with the affidavits. I turned in an affidavit just because that's what they asked for, but because I was applying, I quickly learned that I could not do that. I mean, I could, but they wanted more. So as many people in your family, as many people as were there for the birth, as many people who have known your child since they were as a baby, I just paid the notary fees for people. I was like, could you notarize it? If they lived out of state, I was like, notarize it. I'll pay the notary fee and I'll pay the fee for you to mail the notarized document to me. Have a few, right? The thing is, it's best to go with more information than less. I remember when we sent, because we did it through the mail, um, before we went in person, and they were like, we've never sent this many documents for a passport. But I just wanted to make sure that my daughter got our passport. So I did more rather than less. And so from my experience, I was asked for additional birth affidavits. So that's what I would say. So do more than one birth affidavit from more than one person. Also, those early records, school records. Uh, I don't immunize, so I didn't have immunization records. But if you immunize, immunization records, all those kinds of things. It's ideal to go to a passport office. I live in a liberal state, so they're very like, ooh, that's a novelty out here. But I will say that I would even buy a ticket, even if you have the funds, if you have the means, I would just buy tickets um, so that you can go into a passport office because nowadays you can't go into a passport office unless you're traveling out the country within 7 days. So I would buy tickets so that I could get an appointment at a passport office with like a real human being. Otherwise, you're going to just have to mail all those documents in. Um, you also can make sure you sign that the affidavit stating that your child has never received a social security number. And take all that to the passport office and you're good to go. If you go in person, again, they might choose. I know our records were handled in New Hampshire, even though I don't live out on the East Coast. So it's very possible they're going to say, we're going to send all this stuff to New Hampshire. If they say that, I would ask for all my records back. I told you guys, I think the lady that we saw, I don't even think she sent the records because when all of our records got mailed back, I did not get any of the stuff I gave that lady. So I would rather be sure that it's going. So if you have somebody that's kind of funny, I would just say, oh, I'll just take all my records back and then go to a normal passport processing facility and then have them mail everything off so that you're sure that it goes in. Because normally I think New Hampshire gets any records that are a little bit more difficult. All right. Let me go to the next question. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Irene. I'm hoping for a little help if possible. I know you're busy and I appreciate your time. I actually think this question is from today. So this person just sent the question today. If you're not listening to this, I will email you back and I will tell you to reference this video. All right. Hi, Irene. I'm hoping for a little help if possible. I know you are busy, so I appreciate your time. And oh, wait, I'll answer some of the questions in the chat in just a minute. Um, Hi, Irene. I'm hoping for a little help if possible. I know you're busy, so I appreciate your time and any help you can provide. I appreciate you feeling comfortable asking me these questions. I was watching a video of yours on getting a passport without a birth certificate and a social security card. I attempted this for my daughter with several documents and was contacted by phone stating that my state, Maryland, requires you to have a birth certificate. He said they are questioning her citizenship. Do you have any thoughts on this? The worker who called stated this rule on secondary evidence was only there because of slaves and doesn't apply to me. He said the letter of no record and affidavit I supplied were meaningless as well. I'm not wanting to cause my daughter extreme inconvenience, so I'm thinking of attempting to get a birth certificate at this point. It's been almost a year, so a delayed one would occur. Okay. So this is not true. I'm curious. I feel like there's more to this story. I wish I could talk to you because I feel like there's more to this story, honestly. Because passports aren't a state issue, a passport is a federal issue. So nobody from your state would contact you about a passport. Um, it's a federal thing. And it's not my opinion that you don't need a birth certificate or social security card. You can go to travelstate.gov and literally just read what they want if you don't have it. Also, in 2024, in the month of September, I just got my 16-year-old a passport without a birth certificate or social security number. It doesn't matter what state you live in at all. But there are some things about this that stick out to me. Okay? There are some things that stick out to me. So, first of all, I don't know what the applies to slaves and doesn't apply to. I don't know what that. I don't even. I find it hard to believe somebody said that, but maybe they did. Um, you would need more than a letter of no record to get a pass. You would need more than that. Okay. Um, I really don't know what to make of this because it doesn't make sense. Like, I wish I could talk to you because I'm not understanding what you're saying. That's not how getting a passport works. When you get a passport, you go to a passport acceptance facility unless you're traveling within 7 days. You go to like the post office. Some universities out where I live have passport acceptance offices. You take paperwork, the people collect the paperwork. In my case, I've had them be like, "Can you write a letter stating this or that?" They love you writing letters stating stuff, y'all. They're very much into this. And then they just take it all and then they mail it to the government, the federal government passport offices. That's how that works. So a lot of what you're saying in your email doesn't make sense to me. I feel like there's more to this story because it's not making sense. But what I can say straight off is that you're going to need more than a signed affidavit to get a passport. You can't just have Because you said he said the letter of no record and affidavit I supplied were meaningless as well. That's not how that works either. That's why I said this doesn't sound right to me. This doesn't sound accurate. When the passport office wants more evidence from you, they send you a letter in the mail or sometimes an email. And it will state what they want from you specifically. It will often say, and then you have to take this letter, right? And with the extra evidence we've asked for, you need to mail that back to the passport office. So everything you're explaining to me here doesn't sound to me like you're trying to get a passport, because I'm old hen at this and I've never heard of anything like this before. This just isn't how the federal government operates. Nobody's going to call you on the phone and tell you anything like this at all. My thoughts are that this doesn't make sense. That's kind of my thoughts. This doesn't make sense. I would be interested to talk to you because nothing you're saying here is how it would work. They normally ask for more information in writing, and they give you a certain amount of time, and if you don't give them what they want in that certain amount of time, they'll deny your application and keep your money. That's how the passport office works. So I don't know what you're talking about. So it's hard for me to answer your question, but I will respond to your email and I will refer you to this video, and then maybe you can give some clarity. Okay, so now for the questions in the chat. If a child already has a birth certificate and a social security number, is there a way to remove it? I've heard Morris speak on it, but I don't know. No, there's no way to remove it. Once the deed is done, it's done. That's why it's better just to not do it if that is your choice. I'm not against people having birth certificates and social security numbers, but I do think that, I mean, I've said it several times, I do think that if we all don't use our right to not do something, then eventually we'll live in a society where we no longer have the right to not do that thing. But you can't get rid of it. And I really caution listening to Moores and Freeman and like all these kinds of people that get off into Wackyville. I believe in following the law. Me personally, I've listened to a lot of their videos. I've also, like, if you really pay attention to the laws that they cite, because I actually read, you guys know I'm like a person that read the Social Security Act. I mean, the whole Project 2025 thing, I read it. I'm that crazy person who will like read all 800 pages of something, right? I read the entire California Welfare and Institutions Code one time. I was like, working on a case where the lawyer was acting really dense. And I was like, well, how about we just read the code? And I read the entire Welfare and Institutions Code. So I am that person. So when I go looking at the videos that the Morris make, the videos that the Freeman make, and they start citing, section so-and-so and code so-and-so, like 90% of the time, 90%, if not more of the time, they are citing code that has nothing to do with anything. Let me give you an example of what I mean using like the Welfare and Institutions Code since I read it. So in a subsection, for example, that is specifically talking about children in foster care, there could be a clause that has some wording. Now, if I am talking about a child who is not in foster care, I could say in section so-and-so of the Welfare and Institutions Code, it says this, but that wouldn't apply to my child because my child is not in foster care. And that's typically how I find that the Moores and the Freemen quote the law. They will take something that is in the law, but the part of the law that it's in is completely unrelated to the thing that they're talking about. So the words they're quoting make sense, and it is a law. It just is not applicable to what the heck they're discussing, right? So I think I would say proceed with caution. No, you can't get rid of it once you have it. No, there's no way out of taxes, no way out of any of these things once you have them. But, right, if you are going to listen to these people, go read the laws. You have to be willing, if you're going to travel down these rabbit holes, you have to be willing to read the laws yourself, not just the section they quoted, but everything around it. And most people aren't trying to do all that. um, Irene, is there a form for the affidavit or is it just a letter signed to them notarized? No, there's a form and it's on the government's website. I'll link my other 2 videos below. I actually put the link to the form in the videos or in the video description. But you know what? I could just pull it up really quick. Hold on. I'll just drop it in the chat. It's not hard to find at all. You just go to travelstate.gov, passport applications, or maybe I can even travelstate.gov, passport, birth affidavit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just drop the link to the form. So this is the form that you need. That's it right there. And this is a legitimate form. You can say it's eforms.state.gov. This is the form that I had to fill out. This is the form that I also sent to other people to fill out for me. So like family members and things on behalf of my children. And I'll just go over what the form says. It says, write everything you, the officiant, remember about the passport application's birth in detail, including date, time, location of the passport applicant's birth, individuals present, any other persons with knowledge about the event, how you, the officiant, obtain knowledge of the event, list the names of the passport applicant's birth parents, and the officiant's relationship to the passport applicant or birth parents. Attach a separate piece of paper and more space if needed. And although it says that you can sign this in front of a passport agent or a passport acceptance or notary, I have found they really just want it notarized. So I actually had some of these that were signed at the passport office in front of an officiant, and they still wanted them notarized. So just notarize them, just pay the money, get them notarized. If you have anybody fill them out, have them notarized. It doesn't really matter what they say at the bottom. They like to have them notarized. Also, if you have other people do them, they have to attach a back and front copy of their ID, their state ID, back and front copy. So make sure that they do that as well. The letter itself, notarized, is not good enough. They also will want a back and front copy of whoever signed its identification card. So I think those are all the actual questions on the chat. I said I'd make this video. I hope that I've answered all the questions. I hope I didn't miss anybody's emailed questions. And I would advise that you guys go listen to my other 2 videos. One is how to get the passport without a social security number or birth certificate. I go into depth. I go to the government websites. I answer a bunch of questions. The other one is working, getting a bank account, buying a house, doing all of those things without a passport or social security. I mean, not without a passport, but without a birth certificate or social security number. So go check out those other videos if you have questions. I just wanted to make sure I provide this update. And you guys are always welcome to email me. If I don't know, I don't know. But I thought I would read those emails and answer those questions publicly because I think a lot of the things that those people asked will probably be asked by many people who watch my videos. It's like a weird thing. My channel's not about this, but interestingly enough, over the years, I've gotten many questions about this very topic. So I think my video does pop up when people are looking out for this. It's a small section of people, but I know there's a lot of bad information out there. So it was really important to me, not to put on blast that that's something I don't do for my kids, even though I don't. But I felt it was important that somebody who actually has children, who lives a legit, regular life, whose children don't have these documents, um, to talk about, like, in the real world with real life experience, what we actually are doing, what is legal to do, what has worked for us versus theoretical stuff or the kind of weird stuff that's out there in the ether about this topic. So hopefully you guys found this helpful, and I will talk to you guys later.